Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Patrick Baird of Madison is a Libertarian candidate for Lieutenant Governor. Patrick, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Your website says you would like decent politics. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, we think as third-party candidates, we're in a unique position to moderate between the intensity of the partisanship that we have in our system right now. If Phil, my partner, Phil Anderson, were elected governor, he'd be in a position to work with both Democrats and Republicans. Obviously, we, as Libertarians, we have a certain worldview that we would want to advance, but there's things that I think we would find agreement on both sides with. And I think people would find that refreshing, to have a different point of view, a different voice in the discussion, aside from the highly partisan two-sided debate that we have now.
You say on the website you'd like to eliminate the income tax. It's the single largest source of state general purpose revenue. Why do you want to eliminate it?
Well, the main reason we want to eliminate the income tax is because essentially the income tax, unlike other taxes like the gas tax, are a blank check to government. They can take that money, they can do whatever they want with it. They can spend it on wasteful programs, they can spend it on cronyism, which is what the Republicans are doing right now with deals like Foxconn. And there's plenty of other states. There's 7 other states that don't have an income tax, and they have universities, they have roads, they have all the things that Wisconsin has. So they find a way to fund the things that are necessary without having to do it through an income tax. So obviously, you know, that's not something that Governor Anderson could wave a magic wand and make happen, but that would be a goal that we'd be working towards, working with the legislature to try to work towards the elimination of the income tax altogether.
Your party would also like more control in the hands of Wisconsin residents. Does that mean you want to do away with levy limits that have limited property taxes for the last dozen or so years?
Obviously, as libertarians, we're not in favor of higher taxes at any level. But at the same time, we are very serious. It's one of our most important points. It flows through a lot of the things that we're advocating, is this idea of more local control, less oversight from above, whether it's Madison or Washington. So yes, we'd probably favor getting rid of the levy limits. We still would want to require localities to have to go through a referendum process to raise taxes. We think that's appropriate. That gives the citizens a chance to debate and oppose increases on the local level. But the fight over spending and taxes ideally should be done at the local level rather than trying to influence the state, which is much more difficult and is more prone to outside interests that can influence.
How then would state government pay for its highway system?
Well, the highway system is not funded through the income tax. A very small amount of income tax actually goes
91% of the transportation fund comes from gas tax and the registration fee.
Yes, and the federal aid, because we're in charge of maintaining federal highways as well. So that wouldn't be affected significantly. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that we believe there's a great opportunity for is reforming the funding of transportation in this state. I know there's a lot of Republicans who are very frustrated with last year's budget deal because it didn't really address it in a responsible way, and we would certainly be willing to work with them on that particular issue, but roads would be largely unaffected in terms of funding by elimination of the income tax.
Well, I understand. Would you make up the deficit in highway funding by raising the gas tax or considering tolling or anything?
No to raising taxes, yes to tolling. Tolling is something we're willing to look at. We think in certain locations in this state it makes a ton of sense. I travel into Milwaukee for work regularly, and it amazes me how many travelers that are going into Milwaukee are driving their cars by themselves. I think if we put a toll plaza somewhere, around the Zoo interchange, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think a lot of people would begin to look at alternatives. it would help us to fund. Right now, the interchanges in Milwaukee are facing a difficult time getting funded and having the projects go forward for extending the life of that infrastructure. So it would help with that. But I think it would also encourage people to look at alternative things like carpooling and high-speed bus lines and things like that.
Let's talk about health care. How would we preserve and improve health care in the rural areas of Wisconsin, Patrick?
Well, the one problem that's really not fixable with rural health care is it's one of the disadvantages of living in a rural area. You don't have a lot of hospitals. You don't have a lot of the amenities that people have, like those of us who live here in Madison. I've got a ton of healthcare options living here in Madison. So you can't really completely fix that problem because that's just an essential part of rural life. What you can do is you can make your insurance more affordable. And one of the primary things that we talk about when we talk about healthcare is divorcing insurance from healthcare. In other words, right now people plan to get all of their healthcare needs met through their health insurance. We don't have that same model with cars. We don't get our oil changes through our car insurance or buy tires through our car insurance. We pay for those ourselves out of our own pockets, and we shop around. We find the best deal, or maybe we spend more if we want to get a higher quality product like a tire, let's say. We need to do the same thing with healthcare. That's the first thing we need to do. Is we need to get health insurance back to being coverage for catastrophic, unexpected expenses. If you do that, you automatically reduce the cost of insurance dramatically, I think. And there's a lot of ways to address the affordability of primary care and routine care, which would include prescriptions, through the market. My partner, Phil Anderson, he has a concierge primary care service where he pays a certain amount every month and he gets a large number of visits and tests and everything covered under that monthly fee through his provider. So there's models like that. There's the option to expand health savings accounts. There's a lot of things we can do with health savings accounts to make those more widely available to people, not just people with high deductible plans, but everybody. And there's ways to fund those through employers and through the government if you're on Medicaid, for instance, or any other, or Obamacare for that matter.
And a single payer system is not the answer,
no,
right, Patrick?
That's utterly the wrong way to go.
Okay.
That would just take everything that's wrong with the current system and make it 100 times worse.
Does state government have a duty to recruit and retain doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals in some of these medically underserved areas?
I think there's a role for yes and no. I mean, as I said, there's some things you just cannot make go away. Rural broadband's another issue, where a lot of people on the Democratic side want to expand broadband throughout every part of the state.
Is that government's job?
No,
it is not.
It is not. Not in that case. There may be a little bit more of an argument for healthcare, for finding incentives for having providers stay in rural communities, maybe a forgiveness of student loan debt, that sort of thing. Certainly not against a program like that. But whenever we look at incentives, we always try to find a way. Is there a way that we can do this through the private market or through government programs that are not just spending money and throwing money at a situation?
Kimberly Clark wants the same tax breaks, tax benefits that Foxconn got. Should they get them?
No.
Why?
Because number one, we believe that the market should pick winners and losers. If Kimberly Clark can't get by without government bailouts, then I'm sorry, and it's unfortunate for the people that may work there, but then they shouldn't survive. And this is the problem with Foxconn, is it opened the door for this kind of extortion. It opened the door for more companies around the state to say, hey, they got this deal, why can't we get this deal? And there's even been, the MacGyver Institute actually had an article last month where they quoted someone who worked in the industry as saying, they don't really need the money. This is not a matter of life and death for Kimberly Clark. This is a matter of advantage for them. And that's the problem with crony capitalism, is that by getting these handouts for government, it's not always about life or death. I mean, Foxconn was going to build their plant somewhere. The only thing that deal meant was it was going to be built here in Wisconsin. So it wasn't a matter of life and death, it's a matter of advantage. And that's what these deals do, is they give one company an advantage in the marketplace, and we're not in favor of that. We don't think the government should be involved in any way of giving advantage to private businesses in the marketplace.
How should K-12 public schools be financed? There was a big bump in state aid in the current state budget. But what's your philosophy in terms of, is that a local government function largely, or do we need another major increase in state aid to public schools?
Along with our focus on shifting control back down to the local government, we would also, to some degree, be shifting costs back down to the local government. What happens in states that eliminate the income tax is that they tend to have a little bit higher property tax rate. We believe that local communities should decide what their commitment to public schools should be. There's some districts that may not choose to, because of their demographics, to make a higher level of commitment to their school district, which is fine. If that's what the community, if that's what they want, that's what they should be allowed to have. Other communities may make it a very high priority. They may want to make their community more attractive to young professionals to come and move there and buy houses and build their community. So they should have that opportunity through the process, the referendum process, of deciding what their tax levy should be. We've just rolled out, just this week, our education plan, the centerpiece of which is universal open enrollment. So we're favoring a system that some other states have begun to try, where parents can take the money that would go per student and take that with them, whether they go to a public school, a private school, or whether they homeschool. We want Wisconsin to look at that model and to see whether or not that provides what we're looking for, which is more local control and a way to have the decisions on spending on schools made at a local level.
Would that plan shut down the vouchers, the choice program that have expanded?
Yeah.
It wouldn't.
The problem with those voucher plans is they all come with strings attached. Whether it's from Washington or the state, we want to cut all of those strings. As a matter of fact, we would refuse the federal money for education that we're getting now in Wisconsin because they come with too many strings attached. So that's a key part of our plan, is to get rid of those voucher programs with all their strings attached and all their intrusion of the state bureaucracy into private schools, and replace it with a system where there was true independence at the local level for both parents and school districts as to how they want to educate their kids.
We have overcrowded prisons. We have 2 prisons built in the 1800s. Do we need a new state prison?
No, we need to start closing prisons. That's one of our biggest issues.
Who would you let out?
If Phil Anderson's elected governor, one of the very first things he would do is he would reconvene the pardon board, which Scott Walker has kept silent for years, and he would pardon every nonviolent drug offender out of prison immediately. Of course, it would be done on a case-by-case basis, but clearly there's a lot of people in prison right now. There's a lot of people, and the Democrats actually agree with us on this particular part of the issue. There's a lot of people in prison that are there because they violated their parole on paper for something relatively minor. There's a lot of reforms we could do to stop sending people back to prison for minor parole violations. So the combination of those things, we think we could get the prison population down significantly in a short period of time, and then we could start looking at which prisons can we close. Let's stop, let's have diversion programs. Let's stop sending nonviolent offenders off to prison and putting them at the taxpayer expense for years on end. And of course, we're very passionate about ending the war on drugs.
Your party would legalize both medical and recreational marijuana?
Yes, legalize it, and legalize it without any restrictions. We would prefer to make it no different than any other agricultural product. So it would be the same as a tomato or a zucchini. You could grow it in your backyard, you could sell it at the farmer's market. But of course, if a bill that had restrictions or taxation attached to it landed on Phil's desk, he certainly would think very hard about doing it. But the main reason we want to and it's just one of the incorrect perceptions people have about the Libertarian Party, that we're basically Republicans who like to smoke weed. That is not true at all. Individual choice is important to us, but we understand the negative consequences, the damaging consequences that the war on drugs has on communities in this state. And we want to stop that. We want to stop the damage that's being done through profiling and disproportionate policing, over incarceration, and start getting people back into their communities, getting them back to work, and healing and rebuilding those communities by ending the war on drugs. That's extremely important on a personal level for both Phil and I.
Final question. Why are you more qualified than Republican Rebecca Kleefisch or Democrat Mandela Barnes?
Well, Mandela Barnes is a career politician. Rebecca Kleefisch was a TV personality. So I think I've got at least enough qualifications to reach that level. I've been working in the healthcare business, including working for insurance companies and claims for 15 years. So I've got a lot of, that issue alone, I've got a significant amount of background and understanding. But to be honest with you, we're all supposed to be citizen legislatures. So we're all supposed to be citizen politicians. So anybody in this state is qualified in my mind to run for higher office.
Thank you. Patrick Baird of Madison is a Libertarian candidate for Lieutenant Governor. The election is November 6th. Patrick, thank you for talking to Wisconsin.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.